Hi class. This video will be on the broad concept of genre. And the way I'm going to get you to explore the concept of genre is by writing one that is pretty typical in the field of technical and professional communication, which is ostensibly an informal report or recommendation report, right? So the genres of these types of reports vary dependent upon the industry that you're in, the field you're associated with, the task at hand. But ultimately, this is kind of under the larger umbrella of a research report, where you are doing multiple types of research in order to produce some sort of practical recommendations for the organization or institution or corporation involved, right? So here, in your specific case, I'm situating you in a hypothetical situation that is actually fairly common. So I wanted to make it representative of an actual situation that would happen. So it's important that you read through the scenario that I'm placing you in as a researcher who is tasked with looking into an emerging field of study, relatively new emerging field of study that people might not necessarily be perhaps persuaded that is worthy of study, or are skeptical of the value of what research might say about translating that into the classroom. So the topic you'll see is one that is going to allow you to do research in both primary and in secondary ways. So I'll get into that in a second. So it's important when you're making decisions about what to include in the report and the writing style that you have and decisions related to audience and readership that you consider the scenario at the beginning of the web page, because that's going to help think about how you're being placed into the specific situation and to kind of envision or imagine yourself as being a researcher in this specific context. So the more details that I add there, the more insight it's going to give you into how you compose this paper and to whom you're writing. So the long scenario that begins this section is written as such for that way, to kind of provide you hints and insights into the type of writing that you're asked to produce and the type of audience to whom you're writing, which is very key in this specific type of research. So this is a long segment, the longest of the class. I think it's roughly between 5.5 and 6 weeks that you have to complete it. So more so than the other assignments, it's extremely important that you stagger your work, in part because there's kind of internal built-in deadlines in addition to the actual final deadline that you have for the actual research report itself. So, I typically provide a suggested timeline for you about, okay, week 1, generally do this, week 2, this, and then week 3, you submit something. It's again, imperative that you read through at the bottom of the site. So keep scrolling down and look at the actual dates that things are due. Because if you miss any of those dates, then it's going to completely sort off your research and you're not going to be able to complete it. And you're not going to be able to produce a high quality report at all. So acknowledge the built-in due dates, put them on your calendar, and make sure you're following those guidelines and revisiting this page often as you write throughout. So the deadlines have to do with the primary research that you'll be conducting, right? So there's secondary research that you'll be conducting. So what that means is research done in journal articles and in books on it's secondary. They're writing about research, or they're kind of writing theory about the actual topic itself, about the topic of games in the English classroom. So I provided for you one source, Squire, that you can actually include as one of your 5, and I would encourage you to read the G piece as well. And then I provide you a list of journals that you could start in to research and to look for different types of articles that provide evidence for, or that are making arguments for either the inclusion or the exclusion of games in certain types of classrooms, right? So the research is pretty much up to you. But again, it is very important that you keep your audience in mind. So when you're thinking about which article do I choose, I have 12, I have 14 different articles. How am I going to discern, or how am I going to just select the 5 or 6 pieces that I'm going to choose? Be sure to keep in mind to think about what is the type of research that you think is most valuable to learn about this issue that's going on in the department right now, but also to think about who your hypothetical audience is in this specific case. So the most challenging part in terms of timelines and in terms of actually kind of making sure things are done on time is the primary research part. And that's because it's scaffolded and because it's going to involve you interacting with everyone else in the class. So it's, again, imperative, clearly there's a theme here, that you read through the section on primary research and exactly what I'm looking for. So the gist of it is that because of the nature of the topic and because of the importance of kind of what students find useful or meaningful in their lives or in the classrooms, I'm actually going to ask you to write a survey, a 4-question survey that you are going to send out to all your classmates. So let's say there's 20 students in the class, so you're one student, so you're going to get 19 respondents to your survey, for example, right? So then you'll be able to actually integrate that primary research, right? You created the survey questions, you created that all on your own, and you submitted up the survey, and your peers completed the survey, and now you could take that information, you could take that data, and put it into the report specifically in order to kind of provide another data point or another type of research to integrate into the report as opposed to just scholarly conversations from academic journal articles, for example. The purpose of doing both those simultaneously is that in a research report of this type, using different types of methods, using different types of research into your report is going to help strengthen your case about what you think should be done, right? So when someone is trying to think about what action to take, right, whether to integrate games into the classroom, for example, they need as much, not only as much information as possible, or the quality of information, but also different types of information, right? So what are the scholars saying? What are our students saying, right? For example, so it's kind of the more voices you can kind of integrate into your research, the more robust it's going to be, and the more feasible and the more likely your recommendations are to be enacted, which is ultimately the goal here. So again, it's very important that you follow that. So you'll essentially be composing 4 survey questions, and I give examples about strong survey questions and weak survey questions based upon a variety of factors. So read through those examples. So the timelines that we have are timelines for you to complete or to create the survey and to share the survey, and then timelines for you to complete everyone else's survey, right? So the goal here, and what you're also going to get credit for, is answering each other's surveys. So not only are you going to get 19 responses to your survey, but of course, in order for that to happen, everyone has to respond to everyone's surveys. So you'll also be taking 19 surveys because you have 19 other students in the class. So everyone is going to be completing everyone else's surveys, but you guys are going to get credit for it. So if you only do 10 out of 19 surveys, for example, then you're only going to get a little over half the grade for that segment, for that part of segment 4. So I'll be sending out intermittent emails prior to the deadlines as a reminder, and as questions emerge, which inevitably they will because it's involving technology and interacting in online spaces, to help clarify. So for now, that's pretty much the gist of the segment here. In total, you are going to be composing a research report. So look through the readings to see design constraints and to think about specific types of headings that you're going to include, and get started on secondary research and get started on the primary research, so that you're not waiting to do that till the end, or if you miss a date or deadline, we can't go back. So if you miss the deadline to create your survey, for example, I'm not going to ask the rest of the class to do your survey late, right? So if you miss the boat, you miss the boat. So timelines are very important here. Quality of research is very important here, and formatting is very important here as you're constructing this kind of amorphous but relatively stable genre of a recommendation report. That's pretty common in a variety of industries and a variety of fields. So email me if you have any questions about research or about technology or anything else, and I'll be in touch soon via email and announcements to provide more details along the way.